Hello students, I am Dr. A. Sutar, Associate Professor, Department of Zoology, Sadhguru Gadige Maharaj College, Karad. Welcome to module number 5. The name of the module is Reptiles. This module is from BSc 2, semester 3, paper number 5, that is Animal Diversity Second. In this module, we are going to discuss the general characters of reptiles, classification of living reptiles up to orders, venomous and non-venomous snakes, poison apparatus in the snake, biting mechanism of the snake, and first aid treatment in snake bite. Hello friends, welcome to module number 5. The name of the module is Reptiles. This module is from BSc Part 2, Semester 3, Zoology paper number 5, that is Animal Diversity Second. In this module, we are going to discuss the general characters of the reptiles, classification of reptiles up to orders, then poison apparatus in the snakes, biting mechanism, first aid for snake bite, etc. Let us discuss the general characters. Reptiles are creeping and burrowing terrestrial animals with scales on their body. They are cold-blooded animals found in most of the warmer regions. When you see the skin, it is dry and rough without any glands. The body of the reptiles is divided into head, trunk, head, neck, trunk, and tail. Few of these share the scales on their skin as skin cast. In reptiles, the respiration takes place with the help of lungs. The scale is monocondylic. They have two pairs of pentadactyl limbs, each bearing claws. Snakes are the exception for this. The heart is three-chambered. However, in crocodiles, there are four-chambered heart. There is four-chambered heart. The nervous system comprises of 12 pairs of cranial nerves. Except the snakes, all reptiles have well-developed ears. They possess a typical cloaca. Reptiles are ureotelic, urigotelic, and amnotelic. Urotelic, that means they excrete the urea as a nitrogenous waste. Uricotelic, that means they excrete the uric acid. And amnotelic, that means they excrete the ammonia as the nitrogenous waste. In reptiles, the fertilization is internal. They are oviparous and the eggs are very yolky. These are the examples: snakes, turtles, lizards, crocodiles, etc. Let us discuss the classification of living reptiles only. Class Reptilia is divided into two subclasses. Number one is the Anapsida and number two subclass Diapsida. Subclass Anapsida has only one order, that is order Chelonia. Subclass Diapsida has three orders. Number one, order Rhynchocephalia, order Squamata, and number three, order Crocodilia. So in this figure, you can see the types of the skulls. So this is the anapsid skull because no temporal fossa is present in the skull. Here only one lateral temporal fossa is there, and this type of skull, it is called as the synapsid skull. And this skull, it is called as the diapsid because here two temporal fossae they are present in the skull. This is the superior temporal fossa and this is the inferior temporal fossa. That's why this skull is called as the diapsid skull. Let us discuss the order Chelonia. In this order, the skull is anapsid type. When you see the body, it is enclosed in a dorsal carapace and ventral plastron made up of dermal bony plates. In the order Chelonia, teeth are absent. There is a single nasal opening. Limbs are aquatic forms modified into paddles for the swimming purpose. When you see the tail, it is very short tail. The sternum is absent in the order Chelonia. There is a cloacal respiration found in the Chelonia. These animals have the longest lifespan. The example is the chelone. So you can see the photographs of the chelones. Then this is the second order, that is the Rhynchocephalia. In Rhynchocephalia, the skull is diapsid type. The skin with scales and mid-dorsal rows of the spines. Vestigial pineal eye is present in parietal foramen. There is no copulatory organ in the male. The teeth are acrodont type. Eggs hatches in 13 months. These are the living fossils. There is a single species, namely Spinodon punctatus of New Zealand. These are the photographs of the Spinodon. The next order is the order Crocodila. The animals belongs to this order are the aquatic reptiles. There is a sternum. The skin is thick with bony plates and the scutes. Limbs are clawed and webbed. Males have one intromittent organ. The type of teeth are thecodont. Heart is completely four-chambered. These are the examples, that is the gharial, alligator and crocodile. This is the picture of crocodile. This is the alligator and this is the gharial. The next order is the Squamata. In this order, the snakes and lizards are included. There are two suborders. Number one is called as the Lacertilla, or it is also called as the Sauria, in which lizards are included. And the second suborder is Ophidia, or it is also called as the Serpentina, in which all the snakes they are included. There is a biped tongue in most of the species. Then there is a horny epidermal. There are horny epidermal scales on the body. Male with double copulatory organ, that is hemipenis. Teeth are acrodont or pleurodont type. Gustatory and olfactory organs, it is also called as the Jacobson organ. They are present in the roof of the mouth. And the example is the Calotes, or it is also commonly called as garden lizard. So these are some pictures of the Calotes or garden lizard as well as the snake also. In this picture you can see the Jacobson organ. This is the head region of the snake. This is the brain And next to the brain, this structure, it is called as the Jacobson organ, which is gustatory and olfactory in nature. This is the bifid tongue. Here in this region it is present. This is the difference between lizards and the snakes. In lizards, limbs are present usually. In snakes, limbs are absent totally. The sternum is present in the lizards while it is absent in the snakes. Eyelids are movable in lizards, and in case of snakes, eyelids are immovable. The tympanum is present in lizards while it is absent in the snakes. Both lungs are well developed in the lizards. In case of snakes, only left lung usually reduced. The nictitating membrane is present in the lizards while it is absent in the snakes. Now about the venomous and non-venomous snakes. So how can we identify the non-venomous and the venomous snakes? So in this chart there are some steps to identify the venomous and non-venomous snakes. First of all, you observe the tail of the snake. So if it is pointed and cylindrical, these are the land snakes. And if it is flat and laterally compressed, then these snakes, they are generally present in the water. And if they are in the sea water, so that they are the sea snakes and they are highly poisonous. The second step is that you can observe the ventral scales in the snakes. So if small belly scales are there at the ventral side, then these snakes are the non-poisonous snakes. For example, such a structure is present in the rat snake. Then if narrow belly scales are there, again it is non-poisonous snake. This condition is present in the pythons. And if the scales or the ventral plates are enlarged, so that snakes may be poisonous or non-poisonous. After that, you observe the head of the snakes. If the scales on the heads are small, then it may be the viper, pitless viper, and it is the poisonous. If there is a Loriel pit which is present on the head region, then it is the pit viper and it is also the poisonous snake. Then if the larger shields they are present, at that time it may be the poisonous or non-poisonous. The next, you can observe the scales on the jaw. If the third supralabial shield it touches the eye, then the snake is nothing but the poisonous snake and it is the cobra and it is highly poisonous. Then the vertebral scales, if they are the hexagonal, then this is also the poisonous snake. And when infralabial scales are large, so that snake may be the crate and it is also the poisonous. So with the help of this chart, you can identify the venomous and non-venomous snakes. There are different types of scales which are present in the head region of the snakes. So in this photograph, you can see the different kinds of the scales on the head region. This is the rostral scale. Then this scale, it is nothing but the prenasal. This is the internasal. This is the postnasal. This is the Loriel. This is the preocular. This scale is the supraocular. This is the postocular, and remaining all these scales, they are the temporals. Then at the ventral side, you can see this is called as the infralabial scales. These are the supralabial scales, and this is the pre-subocular scale. So these are the different types of the scales which are present in the head region of the snakes. Now you can see the poisonous and non-poisonous snakes with the help of again some characters. See the head region. If triangular head region is there, it is the poisonous snake. If rounded head is there, it is non-poisonous snake. Then in the poisonous snakes, there is a elliptical pupil in the eye, and also there is a presence of pit, and fangs are also present. Here in this case, non-poisonous snakes, the pupil is round, then fangs are absent. When you see the anal plates of the poisonous snakes, there is a single row of subcaudal plates. So this is the single row, and in case of non-poisonous snake, there is a double row of subcaudal plates. So with the help of this also you can identify the poisonous and non-poisonous snakes. Then these are the teeth marks from the bite. So these are the teeth marks of the poisonous snake. As two fangs they are present in the upper jaw, therefore such a markings are present in the bite. This is the upper jaw marking and this is the lower jaw marking. And in non-poisonous snakes, there is no marking of the fangs. Then about the poisonous apparatus in the snake. Poisonous apparatus has different parts like poison glands, then fangs, etc. Let us discuss the poison gland. These are the modified superior labial or parotid glands. They are situated on the either side of the upper jaw. This is sac-like structure, thickly encapsulated with fibrous tissue. Narrow duct from the anterior end of the poison sacs, and it passes forward along the side of the upper jaw and loops over itself just in front of the fangs. The capsule supports vascular fibrous septa that separate the glandular substances into secretory pockets. In this figure, you can see the poison apparatus in the snake. This is the poison gland, and this is the poison fangs are there. This is the tongue which is present in the lower jaw, and different kinds of muscles they are also present in the mouth cavity. These are the different types of fangs which are present in different kinds of snakes. The second structure which is present in the poison apparatus is the fangs. Snakes eject venoms by their two hollow maxillary teeth called as fangs. These fangs are long, sharply pointed and hook-like, being extremely hard and calcified with a superficial enamel layer. Now there are two different types of fangs. One is the according to the structural differences poison fangs, and second type is the according to position and poison fangs. So according to the structural differences, there are two types of fangs. One is the open type, which is followed by a groove for the conduction of the venom, and second type is the closed type, in which fang becomes almost or totally tubular, hypodermic syringe-like structure due to approximation of the groove tips. In second type, that is according to the position, the poison fangs may be opistoglyphodont or protyroglyphodont. In Opistoglyphodont, fangs lie at the back of the maxilla and are of open category. And in Proteroglyphodont, fangs are situated at the front end of the maxilla and are at closed category. Let us discuss the mechanism of the snake bite. There are different steps in the snake bite, in which there is opening of mouth by contraction of digastric muscles, rotation of maxilla bone, fangs become erect and press the victim, mouth closes by the action of temporalis muscles, and injection of poison is completed. The mechanism also entails the same story in case of Indian poisonous snakes, especially the cobra and viper groups. The mechanism of biting is a complicated process, and the sequences of biting may be discussed in three observable steps. Number one, opening the mouth. Just before striking, the digastric muscles contract. As a result, the mouth opens. The second step is rotation of maxilla. As the mouth opens, the lower jaw moves forward, and rotation of the squamosal, quadrate, and mandible in relation to each other occurs. Now the spinopterygoid muscles contract. This contraction results in the forward movement of pterygoid and up pushing of the ectopterygoid. The upward movement of the ectopterygoid brings about a rotation of the maxilla on its own axis round the lacrimal, and as the end results, the fang is raised and comes to its striking position. The fang is nearly horizontal in position when the mouth remains closed, but during opening of the mouth to bite, the fang assumes almost vertical position. Bolt and Ewer in 1964 have suggested that the quadrate is loosely attached to the superior part of the pterygoid, and the weak force, which is generated by the rotation of the lower end of the quadrate, could not help in the forward movement of pterygoid and ectopterygoid. They suggest that the movement of the pterygoid and ectopterygoid is effected by the contraction of their own muscles, the protractor and levator pterygoidae, which jointly acts to push the pterygoid and ectopterygoid directly forward. As a result, the maxilla rotates in its own axis. Bolt and Ewer also believe that the erection of fangs is not related to the opening and closing of the mouth. The fangs can be erected independently. So in this figure, you can observe different positions of the full opened mouth. Note the relative position of the fang, maxilla, lower jaw, quadrate, and squamosal. Then a scheme showing the relative position of the principal bones involved in the erection of the fang. Then the next step is the closing the mouth. This is brought about by the contraction of temporalis muscles and spinopterygoid muscles. The point of the fang is directed backward while the mouth is closed. It takes a longer time to open the mouth than close it. Now this is about the first aid treatment for snake bite. First of all, call medical help immediately if possible. Remain calm and remember, most snakes snake bites are not fatal. Minimize movement if possible. If you are hiking alone, you may have to hike out for help. If you are bitten on the arm or finger, remove your rings, bracelets, or watches. Loosen any tight clothing in case swelling occurs. Apply a pressure bandage to the bitten limb. If the bite is to the trunk, head, or neck, apply firm pressure to the bitten area. Do not restrict chest movement as breathing will be affected by this. Splint or use a sling on the bitten limb to restrict movement. If there is no bandage or equivalent to apply, a pressure bandage makes to apply a pressure bandage makes note of any inflammation by tracing the edge of the swelling with a pen or like near around the bite and mark the time clearly next to it. If it progresses, make a new tracing noting the time of each new mark besides that new tracing. This will give valuable information to medical help as to the development of the swelling. If possible, lie down and keep the bitten extremity at the body level. Raising it can cause venom to travel through the body quicker. Holding it down can increase swelling. When possible, arrange for transport to the nearest hospital emergency room, where antivenom for snakes common to the area will often be available and given if required. These are the references used to prepare this video. This is the assignment number 5. Question number 1. Give the silent features of class Reptilia and describe the order Squamata. Question number 2. Give an account of the distinguishing characters of venomous and non-venomous snakes. Question number 3. Write a note on Chelonia and second note, snake biting mechanism. Write this assignment in your notebook, make the PDF and submit this assignment to me on this email ID. My email ID is ausutar@gmail.com. Thank you.